can't explain this without sounding just mad. Hello, how are you? Hope you're doing really well. Thank you so much for joining me today for a classic list video. I haven't done one of these yet since I came back to YouTube, and this is one I've really been wanting to do because it's a category of book that I feel very passionately about, and it's unhinged books. They're the kind of books that at some point you just realise that you have no idea where you are or what's going on. They are my books. They are for me specifically. So before I start, please let me know your most unhinged books, the books with the most unhinged narrators, whatever it is. If it's weird, I want to know about it. Please let me know. Thank you. But now I'm going to dive into mine. These are not in any kind of order. I'm just diving into them as I see them. But we are going to start with Absorbed by Kylie Whitehead. Not many people have read this by the looks of things. It doesn't have many ratings on Goodreads, so I'm very happy to give it a little shout out. This is about a young woman living in the UK who's in a relationship, a long-term relationship with a man, and basically she physically absorbs him. And there's no other way to put it. I was expecting more body horror going into this. It really doesn't have much body horror, but it is very strange and surreal, and it's one of those kinds of books where you're trying to work out what is real and what is not real. And honestly, I think it's a fascinating one. There's a lot of commentary on modern relationships and codependency and feeling like you've lost yourself within your relationship. It's not one of my favourites. I think I gave this 4 stars rather than 5, but I really do recommend it. And I think it was great. Oh, this is floppy. Nice, good for you. Next is Boy Parts by Eliza Clark. This is probably one of my favourite books ever. I actually hugely recommend that you don't look up what this book is fully about before you read it, because I think that journey of finding out what this is so fun. If you like unhinged books, if you're aware of the trigger warnings, which I will put in the description. Very briefly, this follows a young woman living in Newcastle, and she is a photographer. She likes taking photographs of men. The back basically describes her as going into a self-destructive tailspin, which I agree with. I think that sums up really well. I think that's almost all you need to know. Honestly, the last couple of lines of this book I will remember forever. Is like the most haunting, chilling lines. I can like see it now. It's so, it's quite a disturbing one. It's one of those books that has the danger of sort of crawling inside your brain and making you feel a little bit weird. But needless to say, I absolutely loved it and I hugely recommend it. Next is one of my favourite books that I've talked about before, but it's Slow by Julia Armfield. So obviously this is a book of short stories, so I can't talk about all of them, but I am going to tell you about my favourite story in here, and it's called The Great Awake. It takes place in a reality that looks just like ours, but there's a phenomenon that starts happening where people stop sleeping, and as soon as they stop sleeping, their sleep is physically manifested in a human being. Oh my god, how do I explain this? So it happens completely randomly. You don't know if you're gonna get your sleep or not. You might keep falling asleep, you might stop sleeping, and therefore your sleep person is awakened, and your sleep, capital S, that is awakened, basically follows you around and does not speak. So it doesn't really interact with you. It's like this very awkward sort of being that is just always with you. And it's so strange, it's utterly bizarre, but it's such a fascinating exploration of what that would look like. Like, people start murdering their sleeps, people go insane because of their sleeps, people really wish that they had a sleep. It's just utterly fascinating. I just love exploring like completely bizarre concepts that you would never even think of. I just think it's great. And I love Julia Armfield for that very reason. Also, the last story in here is similarly unhinged. It's so weird. Anyway, that's Salt Slow. I hugely recommend it if you haven't read it already. Also, the audiobook is great. I'm also going to briefly talk about Revenge by Yoko Agawa. This is another book of short stories, so I can't fully talk about what the whole book is about, but this is a short story collection that are all pretty dark, all pretty chilling, and I'm going to briefly talk about not my favourite, but probably like one of the most unhinged. So it basically follows a man who is a bag maker, and he's put in touch with a client who's I can't explain this without sounding just mad. Basically, the client's heart is on the outside of her body. Are you still with me? Okay, and basically our bag designer guy, there are like no words for him. Everything about him makes me uncomfortable. It's so unsettling. Whew. If you like a weird little time, this is a great one, and it's also very short, so I recommend giving this a go. The next book I'm going to quickly mention is Earthlings by Sayaka Murata. People are so hot on spoilers for this. I think people are very, very scared of giving away like what this book truly is. So I'm going to be careful, but I will say that content warnings for physical and verbal abuse and sexual assault and sexual abuse. This is a really tough read, but without going into spoilers, it follows a young girl called Natsuki who genuinely believes that she is an alien, and more than anything she craves escape from her family, her own body, this planet, and that starts manifesting itself later in life. And it's... I included this in a reading vlog. There's a montage of me reading the ending, which I honestly would have to say is one of the maddest things I've ever read. I wouldn't say it's like a horror novel, I don't think it's anything close, but it is completely surreal. Also, like, it's not completely nonsensical. Like, I do understand why she wrote this and why she wrote that ending. I completely get it, and I think it's kind of genius, to be honest, but it doesn't make it any less shocking. So yeah, just be aware if you do read this that the last like 40-ish pages might burn themselves to the inside of your brain. So I'm just saying that now. And that is Earthlings. I am going to quickly talk about Mona Awad because she wrote Bunny and Allswell, which are two of the greatest books of all time and unhinged books of all time. This basically follows Samantha, who goes to university, and she is absorbed into a friendship group called the Bunnies. They call each other Bunny. They are utterly fascinating. Some of the greatest fictional characters ever. I love them. And this book is just an absolute whale of a time. Most of the time I didn't know what was going on, but I think Mona Awad is really, really good at structuring and writing books that are unhinged and do feel mad, but you can still kind of work out what's happening at the same time and what everything means. And that's why I love this book. I think this book is popular for a reason. Mona Awad is an incredible writer, and I just hugely recommend that you give it a go, even if you aren't into super unhinged books. And the second one is Allswell. I feel like Allswell is almost a level up from Bunny in terms of unhingedness, because at some points you just really do not know what's going on. I think this is more a book that's up for interpretation and reading it again and seeing what different people get from it. I think this book would be really good for book clubs, but I took a lot away from this. It's about experiencing chronic pain and not believing women in pain specifically. It's a real roller coaster, and it's again one that I can't wait to reread to see if there's anything else that I pick up from it. This book almost feels like that game where they just like drop you somewhere random in Google Maps and you have to work out where the hell you are. Do you know what I mean? You just do not know what you're doing or what is going on. But I absolutely love her books and they are top tier. And if you are looking to get into unhinged books, I think I would recommend Bunny along with the short stories in here. So to finish this video, I'm going to talk about two books that I feel like a lot of people have read at this point. So the first one is My Year of Rest and Relaxation by rder. This follows a main character who basically decides that she's so depressed that she wants to have a year of sleep. So she basically tries to get as many pills as possible from her unhinged psychologist? Is that the right term? I hope so. So this book is very plotless. If you don't like that, I definitely don't recommend this. It literally is a woman who sleeps for a year, and her account of that and her ponderings and ramblings on life and her own trauma that she's experienced. I just think that Otisha Moshfegh is fantastic, and I can't wait to read Lapvona. Oh my gosh, I can't wait. The last book on this list is the one that fucked me up the most, and it's I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid. I couldn't not include this for this video. I literally couldn't not. I know I've talked about it before, but this book is just like, it still makes me feel sweaty whenever I think about it. And I read it 2 years ago. I put this under my sofa cushion for like a couple of months because I didn't want to look at it. I'm not kidding. Can I just show you the page that made me like lose my mind? I'm sorry, but when this happened, that page had such an effect on me that like I can still feel it. I like threw the book across the room because I just felt like this book was so cursed. I mean, I should explain what this book is about. It's about a couple who drive to his parents' house to visit them, and that is fucking weird. And then they leave and there's a snowstorm and weird shit starts happening. And that's the only way I can describe it. I don't think I could actually ever reread this. It got two in my head and it felt appropriate to finish on that one. So that is everything. So they are my most unhinged book choices. I hope there will be many more. They are now one of my favourite things to read. So again, if you have any recommendations, that would be wonderful. But for now, that's everything. Thank you for watching. I hugely appreciate it. If you're not subscribed, consider subscribing. See you next time. Goodbye.